I'm going to ask you about the concert in just a second, but let me bring in James now. James, so now we have this flame that has finally arrived or is arriving rather, in Marseille. Where does it go next?
Okay, so it's going to arrive in the port, as we know, and after that, it's got a couple of weeks of journeying all across France. Now, here's a look at where it's going to be going. Here's the route, as you can see. So we're leaving from Marseille. It's going to go to Corsica, so the island that's well off in the Mediterranean, but quite close to Italy as well, before coming back along the Pyrenees, back up, and obviously part of all of this is the whole aim is to showcase France. So we're going to see it going through the vineyards, obviously, going through the Bordeaux region. It's going to be going through there. The Sable d'Olonne, very well known, and Brittany down across here. It's going to make one stop in Paris on the way. And it's also going down to the Alps. Now, the Alps is, of course, where the Mont Blanc is, the highest mountain in Europe, over 4,800 metres. It's going to be climbing, it's going to be taken up to the top of that summit. And then it's also going to these overseas territories that you can see here. So those are La Réunion, which is close to Madagascar, off the side of Africa, off the coast of Guyana, and Martinique, also in the Caribbean. So the aim is for it to travel all across France and its overseas territories, and obviously every time you've got to have all these precautions taken to make sure that the flame doesn't turn out. It's carried in, as we saw in the Belém, these special little boxes keeping it alight the whole time, and that's basically an idea of what we're going to be seeing over the coming weeks until it finishes the second time in Paris on the 26th of July, the start of the Olympics, with the opening ceremony that day, which is when, of course, the cauldron in Paris will also be lit. And the last person to light that cauldron is always a surprise. That's kept very, very secret. There's a lot of big names that are going around, but we're not going to know until that moment actually happens.
What do you suspect it could be?
Well, I think first tonight we're going to get an idea of whether or not Zinedine Zidane might be one of the first relay torchbearers in Marseille, obviously being from Marseille and so important for him over there. We can expect to see him at some point, I think, hold the flame. We've got no official confirmation, but if he does in Marseille, then it wouldn't be in Paris. So there's many ideas. Maybe we're going to have, as we saw in London, we had some smaller, lesser-known athletes who came together in a symbolic way to light the cauldron, or we could have something of the like of, as happened in Atlanta many years ago, someone, well, obviously it wouldn't be Muhammad Ali, but Muhammad Ali who lit that cauldron back then. That was so symbolic. So they're going to need to try and find some French sportsperson or personality that means so much for the rest of the world.
That's global, exactly.
Exactly. That's the difficulty in finding someone that everyone across the world does know.
It has to be a football player, unfortunately.
Well, it could be.
Okay, so let me go back to Selina, standing by in Marseille. Selina, you've been speaking to people who have come out for today's events. Where are they from?
They're from everywhere, really, Delano. I spoke to a woman earlier who is from Honduras. Obviously, she's lived in Marseille for 12 years. She says that it's a lot of pride, I think, is the main thing people are saying here today, that it's a lot of people from Marseille, from elsewhere in France. We've heard some English speakers, some Americans, some British people as well. And I think the overall riding theme, especially for people who are obviously from the city of Marseille, is that there's very much a sense of pride here that France's second biggest city has been given this very big occasion to welcome the flame here on French soil. It's a day of first, Delano. It's the first time that the Olympic flame will be welcomed by a city that isn't the official host city. That, of course, is the French capital, Paris. So there's supposed to be 150,000 people expected here today. Everybody's out and about. Obviously, the sun is out as well. And I think it's just a big moment of pride. And I think everyone from Marseille is saying that they really want to show that the city is rising to the occasion to host big events just like the capital, Paris.
You mentioned this, Selina. Marseille is not the host city, yet it will be hosting some events during the Olympics. Like what?
That's right, Delano. Obviously, Marseille is located by the coast, so obviously it's the perfect place to hold all the sailing events. Those will be taking place in the marina, which has got a brand new sailing centre that's been built especially for the Olympics. So that will be all taking place here on the coast of Marseille. And what else other than football to take place in this iconic French city when it comes to football? It is to this day the only team, Marseille, Marseille is the only French team to have won the Champions League, and obviously, as James mentioned, a very big football figure synonymous with this town is Zinedine Zidane. As he mentioned, there's been a lot of questions by people here today whether he will be featuring at some point today or tomorrow. All of that is yet to be revealed. Some people suspect he might feature this evening. We'll have to wait and see.
And also, James, let's talk about this whole event that is taking place today, and of course, events in Paris and the Olympic flame route, as you were showing us before. Clearly, it's a security nightmare for officials, isn't it?
Well, it's a massive test for them ahead of the actual the actual weeks during the Olympics, because you want everything to go right. Every region. We had a look at the map, and there are some areas where it doesn't go through, some of the départements and the smaller regions where it doesn't go through. That's because you've got to pay to take, for example, look, there's quite a few blanks here. You have to pay 180,000 euros to welcome the flame. It's a bit like, I mean, many departments are used to doing that in France because when they host like a stage for the Tour de France, it's the same kind of idea. You have to pay to host it, and with all that comes the security issues that you have to bring with it. So some have chosen not to do it, and in terms of security, we've seen all the preparations that have been happening. There's been tests because, of course, what does happen is very often, and they know that it is quite inevitable, is that somebody is going to try and, in some one act of protest or another, try to turn out the flame for X or Y reason. And those are something that obviously no region wants their name to be associated with that. So they've, of course, got to make sure that the security is all good. And that's just in terms of the flame, but of course, in terms of the spectators and all, it brings big crowds along, and as with any big event, you need to make sure that everything's safe. So no region wants anything bad to happen for them. I'm pretty sure they'll be quite happy once they've hosted the stage for the torchbearers of the flame, and that everything goes well, and to pass it on to the other regions. But a lot of these, there's going to be some big names carrying the flame. A lot of them are going to be unknown people as well, or who've been selected because they've got a fantastic story behind sports or as a community or other things. And the whole idea is just to keep this a party atmosphere for every stage and every torchbearer who's going to be taking part in this route, this relay for the Olympic flame.
James, Selina, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Selina, enjoy the sunshine in Marseille.